Right, so good day, class. So today we're going to talk about leadership and sustainable development. So I took the slides from one of my presentations for my doctorate studies. So we're going to talk about sustainable development because it's an important context, especially in community development and planning, just as well as leadership, because you need leadership in order to lead communities. And as architects, I think we should look into a future that is more sustainable, especially when we design or plan communities. So, what is sustainable development? So, in the report, sustainable development is defined as development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, the role of companies in achieving sustainable development has been a subject of lively discussion over the last decade, and considerable increase in the quantity of corporate disclosures relating to environmental and social issues is well documented in literature as well. So, what is sustainable development in its most recent definition? So, the Brundtland Commission's concept of sustainable development in 1987 attracted significant attention and launched a great deal of new research. Since that time, studies on sustainable development have encouraged global analysis worldwide from ecological, economic, and social perspectives, as well as the growth of reforms. So these are what you call the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So the first is no poverty, two is zero hunger, three is good health and well-being, fourth is quality education, fifth is gender equality, six is clean water and sanitation, seven is affordable and clean energy, eight is decent work and economic growth, ninth is industry, innovation and infrastructure, the 10th is reduced inequalities, the 11th is sustainable cities and communities, the 12th is responsible consumption and production, 13th is climate action, 14th is life below water, the 15th is life on land, the 16th is peace, justice, and strong institutions, 17th is partnerships for the goals. So these are the sustainable development goals. So it's important that you familiarize yourselves with the SDGs because most of the goals of the government are anchored on these tenets. And these are also important considerations when we plan and design communities as well. And what is the UN Global Compact? So it is a set of principles that enable companies to operate within a culture of integrity, enabling them to uphold their environmental and social responsibilities and attain long-term viability. So it is a comprehensive approach to corporate sustainability. Then there are 10 UN Global Compact principles. So these principles were derived from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Labour Organization's Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, and the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. So, these are the compact principles. You have human rights. So, businesses should support and respect the protection of internationally proclaimed human rights. Make sure that they are not complicit in human rights abuses. You have labor. Businesses should uphold the freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of all forms of forced and compulsory labor, the effective abolition of child labor, and the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. Then we have for the environment, businesses should support a precautionary approach to environmental challenges, undertake initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility, and encourage the development and diffusion of environmentally friendly technologies. And we have anti-corruption. Businesses should work against corruption in all forms, including extortion and bribery. So let me just move the slide a bit. Then we have the sustainable operational activities. So if you look into it, this is an example. So how does Shangri-La Hotel focus on the 5 years environment, health and safety, employees, supply chain, and stakeholder relations? First, that Shangri-La Group participates in the Carbon Disclosure Project, or the CDP, to demonstrate the importance given by senior management on the impacts of climate change to the organization. Then Shangri-La supports local employment, thereby contributing to the overall residents' quality of life. About 89% of its employees are local citizens, and around 2% of permanent employees are persons with disabilities. Then Shangri-La prefers community source supplies to promote local community growth and development. So in 2012, the hotel group launched its sustainable seafood policy, committing the group to stop serving shark's fin at all of its restaurants. Then, what is the Philippine strategy for sustainable development? So, these are the general strategies. So, the goal of the Philippine strategy for sustainable development is to achieve economic growth with adequate protection of the country's biological resources and its diversity, vital ecosystem functions, and overall environmental quality. The PSSD has for its core a number of implementing strategies which is aimed at resolving and reconciling the diverse and sometimes conflicting environmental, demographic, economic, and natural resource use issues arising from the country development efforts. So the strategies are: first is the integration of environmental considerations in decision making, the proper pricing of natural resources, property rights reform, establishment of an integrated protected area system, rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems, strengthening of residuals management in industry, which is pollution control, integration of population concerns and social welfare in development planning, inducing growth in rural areas, promotion of environmental education, and strengthening of citizens' participation and constituency building. Okay. Now, let's talk about the PSSD in the Sustainable Cagayan de Oro Project, or SCDOP. So, the Sustainable Cities program was implemented in the Philippines through the Strengthening Local Environment Planning and Management, LEPM, by the Department of Environment and National Resources. So, the project was established to strengthen the local government units and enhance their capacities for participatory environmental planning and management at the local level, was enhancing the capability of national institutions like the DNR and the League of Cities of the Philippines to support LGUs in the EPM. Through the financial support from the United Nations Development Program and the UN Habitat, the 3-year program was implemented through a project management coordinating unit established in the DNR in partnership with the LCP. And what are the priority issues? We have the solid waste management, SWM, and that's coastal control. The demonstration projects are the recovery of municipal solid waste into compost, the per-urban organic farming and water management development, the city coastal cleanup, the artificial reef development, the mangrove and rehabilitation and plantation fish sanctuary project. Then more specifically, we have the Integrated Solid Waste Management Project, ISWMP, and the Allotment Garden in Barangay Bugo. So, the Integrated Solid Waste Management Project of Bugo was pioneered by the Local Environmental Planning and Management, or the LEPM, and is now promoted by DLAG's Good Practice in Local Governance Facility for Adaptation and Replication. So the focus of the DLG's program is to support LGU efforts in confronting local environmental issues through city-to-city exchanges. Kalambuan, or the ISWM project of Bugo, was designed to answer the garbage issue in the barangay. So it emphasized waste segregation as an initial and important component in any proper garbage disposal system, creating livelihood opportunities for the marginalized fraction of the barangay population. Kalambuan has earned Barangay Bugo, an award from the DNR. National Search for Model Barangay for its eco-waste management in 2004. Okay, so I think this is one of the projects for the UAP CDO chapter for fiscal year 2009-2010 and fiscal year 2011-2012. Okay. So I think this is an example of a two-chambered septic tank. So the problem is that if it uh, goes too deep, we have it could leach. Then goes to the deep well, so thus polluting the water resource that we have. So how do we address that? We have what you call the EcoSan dry sanitation toilet. So the design it does not need septic tank, feces, and urine. We go into two separate containers chambers which serve as storage area. So the cost it can be low cost or high cost depending on the materials used. So instead of polluting the water table here, using a two-chamber leaching tank which has the potential to reach the water table, which could pollute our deep wells and our water supply, we're going to use uh, a dry sanitation toilet. Let me move the slide. So the EcoSan dry sanitation toilet, the advantages are the improvement of health by minimizing the introduction of pathogens from human excreta into the water cycle, the promotion of recycling by safe hygienic recovery and use of nutrients, organics, trace elements, water and energy, conservation of resources through lower water consumption, substitution of chemical fertilizers, minimization of water pollution, groundwater protection. It's not expensive. The use of local materials. It's applicable to local sanitation practices. Okay. Then I think this is an example of a USTPCDO hazard assessment. You could access this is a website class. So I think I'll post it in our group chat wherein you can look at the hazard risk assessment per the data of the Department of Science and Technology. So you can see here that USTPCDO is prone to ashfall, probably because we have a volcano in Camigan. So imagine Camigan is really far. So if the volcanoes become active, then probably it would have experienced some ashfall. But hopefully, we won't experience that in our lifetimes or in the near future. I think when it's about flooding, which I think most of us have experienced already, it has low susceptibility, less than zero point 0.5 meters flood height, and or less than 1 day flooding. So these are the data which was generated by looking at the website of the OST for geohazard. So I just posted that so that you'll have an idea, especially when you do your thesis, and how you're going to um, research on the different lots for your projects. Okay, so as are my references. Let me go back to the first slide. So you have any further questions or clarifications, class? I think you know that you could reach me anytime through our group chat in Facebook, or can send an email, uh, or you can just text me. So it's not really a problem. I often reply as long as I'm not busy. So I hope that you have learned something about leadership and sustainable development. So these are just general and basic concepts. Hopefully you could apply that in our community development subject. And then probably in the next semester, you'll have a more focused lecture in sustainable development. Okay, so stay safe, class, and then see you next meeting.